Thank you. Good to be with you.
Well, your last interview did huge numbers and caused a lot of controversy in the Vlad TV community. And what was interesting is that the timing of it came out right when the Congress UFO meeting happened in July. So based on what you saw in that congressional meeting, what did you think overall?
Well, it wasn't really a proper hearing because they haven't been authorized to get subpoena power, but it was just, that committee, the oversight committee in the House, was putting their toes in the water. Now, remember, they had two pilots who were there, who one of whom I debriefed, Mr. Fravor, and then a person that I provided information to when he was undercover, named Mr. Grush. But Mr. Grush is not a principal firsthand witness. He was recounting information from people such as we have 755 firsthand witnesses and whistleblowers in the Disclosure Project community. So that's what that was. So it was a very initial process. There may be another one, but in terms of getting to the bottom of this, you're going to have hearings that have subpoena power, which unfortunately, very recently, I think in the last 2 weeks, the Speaker of the House, or I guess former Speaker of the House, shot down the request that the 6 Congress people asked for subpoena authorization, which has to be approved by the Speaker. So, and the reason that's important, if you don't have subpoena power, the most high value whistleblowers on all this aren't going to step forward. They're going to have to be compelled through a legal subpoena. So that's one thing just to keep in mind. So it was a very initial, and of course I've been meeting with a number of the people in that committee were people I've been briefing, and they were, had asked me what questions to ask. But I think that the bigger issue is to get to the bottom of something this complex is going to take a much more thorough and long-term investigation by the U.S. government. Remember, there are two governments. There's the government that you all know about from your civics lesson, and there's a illegal secret government operating. And this is why people like the chairs and the co-chairs of the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee keep asking for information because they don't have it. So the process we're in now is providing through a classified project the information and the whistleblowers that they want to hear from. But in terms of a public hearing or something that would actually be more on the record and not in a classified, what's called SCIF, a secure compartment information facility, that's still to be determined. That's still something we're working on to get set up.
Okay, so give me an example of a subpoena that you would like to see that didn't happen last time.
Well, there are specific people that should be subpoenaed. For example, in our Disclosure Project whistleblower community, over 750 people. One good example is a man who for 10 years worked in a very secret office in the Pentagon dealing with this issue. And this was in the early 2000s. And he was read into or briefed on 18 of these very sensitive projects, including having gone to a facility out in near Fort Sill, Lawton, Oklahoma, where there was an extraterrestrial vehicle that had been obtained, downed, and that they were studying. And another facility outside Seoul, South Korea, that has a very large extraterrestrial vehicle that's in storage. And a lot of the technologies that were being studied, he knows where these bases are. He knows the compartmented code names, all of that. But this is someone who has been so intimidated in terms of coming forward that he's going to have to be compelled through a subpoena and be protected under federal martial witness protection. So we have dozens and dozens of people like that. And in order for them actually to get what they're asking for, if you hear the members of the Senate and Congress talk about what they're wanting to get, which are information on the actual craft, the bodies of extraterrestrial beings that we have, the technologies that have been reverse engineered, meaning we've studied these craft since the 40s, and now we have man-made craft that go up and around. By the way, most of the UFO, UAP sightings people have are not extraterrestrial. They're mostly ours, but people don't know it. For example, so all of that, we know where these are. I have a map blacklist site, black sites. It has 147 black sites on them now. And we're handing that over to the Congress and to the White House. We know where they are because we have people who've worked in the facilities who have given us information, in some cases documents, about what's going on there, what's stored there, what research and development is happening at specific locations. So all of this is to say that there's an enormous amount of data and information we have, but you need a mechanism legally to bring it out because, number one, as Mr. Grush rightly pointed out, people have been killed trying to get this information out. And then number two, these people are very afraid for the consequences of doing it without some type of subpoena where they're compelled to. In other words, where, okay, they don't have a choice. Now, the Disclosure Project has about 70 top secret guys who've already come forward. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see their testimony. And it's everything people were wondering, where are these people? Well, they're on my YouTube channel. But those are people who are not currently in the system or were not in a very long-term situation, except for a couple of them. We have one witness who's recently passed away who was on a retrieval team where he handled the extraterrestrial bodies, or if there were living ones as well. And that's on our YouTube channel, Sergeant Stone. So we have these, but we have many, many more. And so for this to actually be done officially under oath is going to require a mechanism that they haven't yet completed. And I don't know if they will. I'm a little concerned. The Senate Majority Leader and others have put together a bill that would make all this go to an external panel. And the external panel would be a bunch of alleged experts. And normally, if you look at the history of the subject, the Robertson panel of 1953, the Condon Committee of 1969, every time something like that is set up, it's actually infiltrated by corrupt interests that want to keep this secret, and they come up with a predetermined conclusion, which is more the cover-up. So I don't think that panel is going to cut it. I think the only thing that's going to cut it is either we, the Disclosure Project, and we're in the process of setting this up, initiate a civilian lawsuit under RICO against these corporations and individuals, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization, and sue them in court. And if that gets admitted into federal court, so we just had a meeting with my legal team to pursue that in the event that the Congress drops the ball on this.
Okay. And, in this meeting, they're referring to these things as UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, which is different than what we grew up hearing, which is UFO. Like, why the shift from UFO to UAP?
They just make up a new obfuscating fake name periodically. So let me tell you how this works. This is all psychological warfare, propaganda. They weren't unidentified flying objects either, because they don't fly with any aerodynamic sense of the word. We'll talk about how they move. There's no aerodynamics to them whatsoever. As far as an unexplained aerial phenomenon, it's not just aerial because they've been tracked underwater and out in space. And also, they're not a phenomenon. Ball lightning is a phenomenon. These are structured spacecraft, et cetera. But they keep coming up with terms that actually are gaslighting. It's sort of like how words, people talk about how words can be used to actually divert people from the truth by using cleverly composed words. In reality, let's just cut to the chase. A UAP, UFO, there are two types, at least, extraterrestrial vehicles and man-made ones. Of the two, the bigger secret are the ones that my uncle worked for Northrop Grumman his whole career, are the ones that Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Skunk Works have. And those are amazing aircraft that don't have jets, rockets, propellers, nuclear power on them. They're using energy from what's called the quantum vacuum or 0 point, which we can talk about, We just released a whole film about this called The Lost Century, which I'm sure you've seen. It's called The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. But those aircraft have been operational since the mid-50s. So between 1940s and 1954, October, a huge research and development was going forward at my uncle's company and others based on the retrieval of some early extraterrestrial vehicles. And they cracked the code, as it were, to gravity control, electromagnetic gravitics, back in October 1954. Now, we know this date because a member of my team had been the top scientist at the Naval Research Labs, who, of course, that lab is the largest Department of Defense lab. It was started by Thomas Edison. And he was in the vault, classified vault, where he saw the document stating that. So many of these objects people see are in fact ours, and they're being used in illegal and clandestine operations. And the very existence of them is not known by the president and the key people in Congress.
Okay, so let's talk about this congressional meeting and some of the takeaways. So one of the things that David Grush claimed is the government is absolutely in possession of UAPs.
Yes.
He said he's absolutely certain of this.
Oh, yes.
And he cites interviews he has conducted with 40 different witnesses over a 4-year period. He said that he led Defense Department efforts to analyze reported UAP sightings and was informed of a multi-decade Pentagon program that endeavored to collect and reconstruct crashed UAPs. When Representative Moskowitz asked him about this, in terms of how it was funded, he claims that it was an effort above congressional oversight and bankrolled by misappropriation of funds.
Correct. That's
and
how it all
Moskowitz asked him, does this mean that there is money in the budget that is set to go to a program, but it doesn't, and it goes to something else? He said, yes, I have specific knowledge of that.
Yep. Yes, I do too. I mean, of course,
okay.